Hello and welcome to Season 2 of COGWATCH, a show that looks at just one mechanic in just one game each episode. I say look, really, what we do is press our face right up to the foggy window of game design and breathe heavily until we've thoroughly creeped out the developer inside. Today we're looking at Steam Early Access title Duskers, a spooky roguelike where you command a team of drones exploring and robbing derelict ships in a truly post-apocalyptic universe, by which I mean everyone is dead. What about that cheeky old merchant? No, he's dead. What about the spunky love interest? You're not listening. Everyone is dead. Duskers features superbly spare storytelling, great problem solving, and an absolutely devastating pace, where you progress as slow as you please, but every so often a threat shows up and will doom your entire expedition if you don't think and act as fast as you can. But today, we're covering my favourite feature above all of this, Duskers' immersive interface and everything it achieves with it. The idea is that you're a human or robot or other controlling your drones from a simple militaristic computer terminal. You can control drones with the cursor keys, hotkeys, and this command prompt. So, typing R14 interface defense will make your drone in room 14 interface with a computer and activate the ship's defenses. If I just fade in a shot of what my hands are actually doing, you can see there. That's me clattering away like a weird futuristic programmer. The other side of this interface is the drones' input to you. You see what they see. Your monitor can't process the fidelity of their camera input, and they don't have microphones, which means these haunted house-like ships you're looting are reduced to little more than scan lines, beeps, and glimpses of horrors. First, and most obviously, let's talk about why this is practical. It massively reduces the fidelity of the assets a developer has to produce. You can add new content to Duskers without sound, for Christ's sakes. And this isn't a new idea. To pick just one example, Noct came out last week, and that has you viewing the world from a drone's infrared camera. Affordable and atmospheric. What I want to talk about is how in Duskers, though, this isn't just cost-saving. It frequently approaches the sublime. Horror games, like horror movies, are forever trying to hide the monster from sight because something's infinitely more scary when it's left to our imagination. One of the lessons Frictional appeared to learn between Amnesia and Soma is to never let the players get a good look at the thing that's chasing them, ever. Duskers has this baked into its interface. It couldn't show you a monster if it wanted to. It simply lets you try and hide from something almost invisible, gives you a half-garbled crew log, and offloads the rest of the processing to your imagination. At first, you wonder what this wreck smells like, where the corpses are, what exactly is it that's chasing you, and eventually, you realise you don't want to know. So far, so good. Where things get superb, though, is how Duskers uses your drones as unreliable narrators. Because here's the fun thing about robots. Duskers can break them. They can start degrading. Now, let me just give you an example of what it can do with this. I was exploring a large hulk, and right in its belly, I moved a drone into a cavernous chamber, and this happened. Video feed lost. I'd never seen this before and immediately sealed the drone in the room. Checking its electrics though, I could see it was still perfectly functional. Had it walked into some kind of electric spiderweb? Should I send something in after it? My heart was in my mouth. I set up a series of locked bulkheads quarantining this room and slowly, ever so slowly, crept another drone around the door, and I saw the first drone sat there perfectly happy. Its video camera had just broken. So I towed it home to safety. And it was beautiful. I call this a sublime moment because Duskers had created enough of a sense of mystery and immersion and fairness that in that moment I was doing battle with an enemy cooler than any game designer could make because it existed only in my imagination. That moment I had wasn't just cool and exciting and atmospheric. It was unique to me in the world because it came from me. So, Duskers' interface once immerses us, saves development time, and lets it imply its horror to life with the very best spooky games in the genre. But you know what else? It lets it get away with a second rule of horror games too. Remember the old tank controls of Resident Evil and Silent Hill? For the young'uns among you, these were games that took standard third-person games but then made the character control like a tank. You rotated slowly, you reversed like a car. It was awful. And ultimately it was criticized by idiots at the time because the reason they did this was to remove your control from the situation, to make you uncomfortable, to amplify the horror. And Duskers' awkward keyboard interface that makes you feel feel like a chain-smoking deep space scavenger, is secretly doing that as well. Let's say you've got some horrible hunting creature on the loose and suddenly need to power a door, open it, get your drones through, and close it again. The full command prompt for that would be remote R13 D17 navigate or R16 D17. This is both not as terrible and exactly as terrible as it sounds, because you will know these text commands by heart, so it's not unfair. But when you need to type that whole string as fast as you can, you're gonna make typos, and the computer will reply to each one with, "I don't understand," and it's gonna make you want to scream as that unknown thing gets closer and closer, and you type faster and faster and make more typos. And again, there's a comparison to be made here with Frictional Soma, because that's another game that knew it wasn't scary enough anymore to just run away from monsters, because players are used to running. It's familiar, and familiarity is anathema to fear. And that's why Soma instead made you fumble batteries into a device at the end of a chase sequence, or spin a giant wheel, or some other unforgivably rote task with a monster closing in, because it was so much worse. There's one final part to Duskers' interface that is, again, as thematic as it is effective, and that's the simple act of giving you the stats on everything. This simple act of telling you the percentage chance of your teleporter to break or the age of the ship you're about to enter is something that saves this roguelike from any sense of frustration and is at the same time totally at home in the science fiction setting. So because you can see the stats on ships you choose to enter, you know how much of a ship you've explored as you hungrily push deeper and deeper, everything becomes your fault. By simply making this part of the game's codebase transparent, everything becomes your responsibility. Your computer interface fails? Of course it did. It had a 6% chance of failing, but you chose to buy the gun turret instead. All in all, Duskers is a game about exploring dark, unknowable places, meaning it's ships, but also meaning your imagination, your own greed, and all three will get you into trouble as often as the other. There's so much more I want to tell you about Duskers, about the things that have killed me, things I found, the way its plot slowly unspools, but that's precious salvage indeed, and I will not rob you of it. For more COGWATCH, check this video's description on coolghosts.net, and what is it, Wally? Do you have something to say?
They should remember to like and subscribe to the Cool Ghosts YouTube channel and support ad-free content by funding them on Patreon.
Great job, Wally. Oh god, that's a radiation leak. Wally, get out of there!